Again, thanks a lot for joining me tonight. We are going to discuss pricing variable tonight. Okay, a number of things that we try to discuss. Look, in brief, there are a couple of unique features that I'd like to outline before we move on in terms of pricing mix or pricing variable. Okay, the first unique feature of price is that price is the only marketing mix variables, the only marketing mix variable that generates revenue. Okay, it generates revenue. So that is the first unique feature of price. If you think about the other marketing mix variables such as product or placements that we just discussed last week and promotion and that we are going to discuss next week, you'll find that basically they mean costs to the business. Okay, yep. So price leads us to revenue, and hopefully since we expect our revenue is larger than the cost, so we expect it will lead us to profits. Okay, right. The second unique feature of price is it is relatively easy to adjust compared to the other marketing mix variables. If you talk about product, adjusting product requires us to do a number of things. Aside from research that we need to do, we also need to work with the R&D team, the packaging designer, and so on and so forth. And we may also need to change our machinery, for instance, our equipments. So the equipments can fit into the new formula, for instance, that we just decide. Okay, so that requires some time for us. Okay, and in terms of price, it may also happen to you where when you go to an electronic shop, an electronic store, for instance, and you bring a brochure of their competitor, you show that, hey, look, your competitor offers a cheaper price. Can you match them, or can you beat them by 10% or whatever? Okay, and the shop assistant may tell you that, yeah, let me talk to my manager, and very likely that this person comes back to you saying, yes, we'll match the price or something like that. Okay, so that reflects that price is easy to adjust, right, compared to the other marketing mix variables, right? So they're the two key features of price that I'd like to discuss upfront with you. Okay, right, and we also have a number of things in here in terms of price. We have rent, train, or bus fare. So it reflects something that we receive as an organization, and at the same time, of course, we need to give something for the customers, right? So we can claim back something from the customers. Okay. Okay. Now there are two perspectives in terms of defining a price. The first one is basically taking the manufacturer or the marketing organization's perspective. Here we say price is the amount of money that we charge for a product. Okay, and the second perspective is actually taking from the customer's perspective, which is basically saying that price is the amount of money that that the customers are willingly to spend to acquire the benefit of the product, right? So this one here is basically taking the customer perspective. Some scholars suggest that this is a broader view in terms of defining a price, because we understand price is basically something that the customers consider as well when it comes to making decision to purchase a product or service. Not necessarily the company's decision to charge a certain amount of money for the customers. Okay, right. So a number of labels that we can find. We can list down. We can list a number of things that we can use to define that basically customers pay, like rent, tuition, fee, fare, and so on and so forth. Okay, so that's basically price. So when we pull out our wallet and pull out the money and we get something else, that means price basically. Okay. Now, price used to be the addendum of a marketing strategy. Okay, the reason why it was labeled as the addendum is because a lot of marketers at that time, in the olden days, believed that their pricing strategy would just follow the company's policy. Okay, if the company's policy is basically about building, certain positions such as premium position or budget position, the price will be the addendum to the marketing plan or the marketing strategy. Right? But then both marketers and scholars find there is a connection, strong connection between price and the buyer's perception or the value that the customers have in their mind. Okay, and here we say that price and brand name are correlated one to another. Okay, the brand name affects the customer's willingness to pay more. For instance, the packaging definitely, and if you compare the packaging of Mark Franklin, for instance, to Blink H2O, I believe we discussed that brand before, you will find that the packaging of Blink H2O drives their customers to pay more. The store name, if the store reflects the upmarket, it will also affect the customer's willingness to pay more for certain store name. Country of origin is interesting. In some countries, country of origin plays an important role, and in some countries they may in fact prefer Western brands. For instance, American brand, Australian brand, European brand, New Zealand brand, and so on and so forth will be considered as higher value in certain markets. Okay. And there is a study actually in America showing, comparing a meat from the American butchers processing, and they compared it with the one coming from Mexico. And actually, the customer side, they are willing to pay more if it is butchered in America. And the audit actually suggests that basically the process has the same level of measures in terms of quality. Okay, so, but nonetheless, country of origin has played a critical role for some products, and especially in today's global market, where we also find that a lot of products basically travel to different parts of the globe, and it may affect the pricing, the prices that they can charge. Okay? Previous experience of the customers, prior knowledge, and so on and so forth, they basically help the customers, help building customers' perception on price. Okay? Right, so that's basically a little bit of intro in terms of price. Now, in terms of considerations in setting price, there are a number of things that we need to consider. The first one is what we call as the price floor. Price floor in here actually reflects the costs. Of making the product. Okay, so we call it as price floor because we can't sell it below. We can't charge the customers below costs because we are going to lose money. So we call it as product costs, price floor. Okay, and in some instances, if we intentionally charge the product below costs to remove the competitors from the market, we may have legal issues in some countries because we are doing a price predatory strategy. Because after we remove the competitors, we escalate the price. Okay. On the other hand, we also need to consider the other one, which is basically the price ceiling. Price ceiling is actually the maximum amount of money that we can charge for the customers. This is actually in line with the customer's perceptions of value. Okay, so that's where that is the price point that the customers perceive as still being reasonable for them to purchase. Above that price, they will find it as a rip-off. Okay, yeah, I like your brand. Your brand is, I know your brand reputation, the product quality, and so on and so forth. But I think for that amount of money, it is just too much, too expensive for me to purchase. Okay. In between, we have some other considerations, such as that include the internal and external consideration. So they are the factors that we need to look at in terms of internal and external considerations, such as the marketing strategy, the objectives, and marketing mix, the other marketing mix variables, for instance, because you will recall that when we discussed that all marketing mix variables should be interrelated one to another, and they should all support the positioning that we promise for the customers. Okay, and in terms of marketing strategy, we also need to consider whether we are building a new category or not. Like the guys at Apple, when they launch iPad, they have the opportunity, since they are the first one in that category, they have the opportunity to set the benchmark in terms of pricing strategy. Okay, or and we also need to consider the nature of market and demand, competitor strategies, and prices. Therefore, in your assessment one, I recommend you to go through the competitors' strategy that includes the marketing variables as well. And economy and the other external factors. Now, the economy thing in here will be discussed next week. It will be discussed in the next couple of days in the next webinar. Okay. All right, so that's prices basically, and I'm not going to discuss this in more detail. Just briefly, if you look at that, David Jones is basically represents a different marketing strategy, or the strategic direction is different to Target, for instance, as a store. So you would expect the prices would be different. The prices that these two store brands offer would be different. Okay. All right, now let's discuss about the major pricing strategies. Okay, and there are a number of options in here. So this is one of the things that you can also consider in your analysis for assessment too. The first pricing strategy that the marketers can consider is the customer value-based pricing strategy. The customer value-based pricing strategy actually starts with the customer's perception about the value of the product. Okay, so it starts with the customers. In real life, marketers may want to conduct a product concept research, and in that product concept research, they normally also ask the price that the customers are willing to purchase. And then from there, they go back to their product design to meet the value that the customers have perceived. Okay, and after that, they brief the other components, including the suppliers, and then deliver the product based on the value that the customers perceive. And here we also say that one of the popular customers' value-based pricing strategy is good value pricing, which is basically about the right combination of the quality service at a fair price. So in here, the marketers try to say, "Hey, we are fair. We charge you this much because that is the offering that we designed for you." And the other one is value-added pricing, where the marketers in here try to add add the benefits, such as features, for instance, to show the customers, "Hey, we charge you that much because we have more things that we can offer you." Okay. And the next one is cost-based pricing. Cost-based pricing is probably easy for us to understand. We look at the costs of making a product that includes fixed costs and variable costs, and then we top up the costs with our margin or markup, and that will be the price that we are going to charge for the customers. And in this instance, the marketing organizations would try to convince the customers, "Hey, look, that is the product that we're offering you, and it is fair." Okay. So if you look at the first two, the difference between between customer value base and cost base is basically the starting point. Okay, in here the starting point is the customer. In here the starting point is the product design, the plans, the manufacturing, and so on and so forth. Internal. Okay, they look at internally. Right, this is a product that we are going to offer, and this product will cost us that much based on the quotation that we receive from the from our suppliers. Therefore, price per unit would be X dollar, for instance. Okay, and from there they mark up, they top up the costs to be the price that they charge. Okay, and the next one is competition-based pricing strategy. In the case of competition-based pricing strategy, the marketers will normally look at the price that the competitors charge for certain products, and then they review it whether they're going to charge higher than the competition or lower than the competition, or even on par with the competition. Okay. In doing so, normally marketers would look at their offering, whether they offer something superior for the customers or not. And if they do offer something superior for the customers, one of the things that they also need to look at is whether the customers can tell the difference or not. Because in some product categories, the customers may find it hard to tell the difference between one product to the others. And we discussed the consumer behavior, for instance. There are some product categories where customers may find it hard to communicate, okay, what is this? Okay, yes, I have consumed this product, or I have consumed this tablet. What does it mean? I can't tell. Okay, so if that is the case, then marketers may find it hard, or may need to find a different way to show its superiority if it does deliver the superior value for the customers. Okay. Right. So, how much would you pay for fried rice at the food court? How much you think they will charge us?
Oh, well, probably cheaper than the others by the looks of it.
So cheaper from the, yeah, okay. So that's probably the cheapest one in here.
Yep.
Compared to the others. Okay, fair enough. So what makes the difference? Oops. What makes the difference between these guys and the other guys? Let's say these guys and the other extreme guys.
Oh, I guess there's perceptions mostly, quality and expectations.
Expectation, fair enough. The quality at the food court. Let's say if we go to the food court and pay for an order of fried rice, we have something else to top up, like chicken or whatever. And after we pay for it, we haven't really wrap up our wallet, for instance, and the guy at the food court will say next already. At the 5-star hotels, restaurants, the ambience is different. You may have live music, and someone servicing you is well dressed, and they may ask you questions, polite questions, nice questions. How do you find your food tonight? How do you find your dinner tonight, sir, ma'am? How do you find it? Things like that. So that makes a difference. So what I'm trying to say is basically it's not only charging high price for the customers, right? It's also the entire package that we design should convey the message whether it is worth or not for the customers to purchase. Okay, including in the case of restaurant or retail industry, for instance, it also includes the ambience of the place. That has become part of the judgment of the customers, whether the customers feel, it's worth that much. Just a bit of difference in terms of value-based costing, value-based pricing and cost-based pricing. As we discussed before, cost-based pricing starts with internal design the product, and the end goal is basically to convince the buyers of the product's value. Hey, that is worth that much. And in the case of value-based pricing, we start with the customers, understanding the insight of the customers, their needs and their perception, and then we set the target price, determine the cost that can be incurred, and finally we design the product to deliver the targeted product with the given price that the customers have discussed. The customers have told us in the feedback. Well, a bit of my my travel basically. Fried rice, food court, and fried rice at the 5-star restaurants. All right, so we understand that there is a connection between the perceptions of price and also the value. So again, it's not only about charging high price, but it's also about showing the evidence that it is worth that much, so we can convince the customers. Right. So in the previous concepts we discussed, just going back there. So this is the first concept that we discussed: major pricing strategies. Right. There are 3 options, and when it comes to launching a new product, we have 2 options in terms of pricing. Whether we can charge market skimming pricing, and the other one is market penetration pricing. Okay. The market skimming pricing basically is about setting the price high, and therefore they will have high margin per unit, but they take a viewer volume. Okay, and the second one is market penetration pricing. The intention of market penetration pricing is basically to charge a low price so that we can get high volume. Right, it allows us to penetrate the market. Okay. Now, you will recall that last week we did in the product classification, in the consumer product classification, we talk about convenience products, and we also talk about specialty product and shopping product, for instance. Okay, there is a tendency that convenience product adopts the market penetration pricing strategy because normally they are very competitive. So if they adopt market penetration pricing strategy, they expect they would discourage the competitors to join, to come on board, especially if they launch new product. Well, the price is, you imagine that if a product category has low price, relatively speaking, it may not generate a high profit for the players, and that is the reason why we expect that pricing strategy would discourage the competitors to come in. Okay, and at the same time, they can also adopt the market penetration pricing strategy because they expect high volume to cover the costs, so they can still make profits. Okay, and on the other end, the luxury product or the specialty product or shopping product may adopt the market skimming pricing strategy, and because they may want to charge high price, and also they can argue to the customers that they are unique, so they're quite brand related, brand associated type of purchase, for instance. So customers would be willingly, because they have the strong brand preference. Okay, right. So that's market skimming pricing and market penetration pricing. Now, the other thing that I'd like to highlight is product mix pricing strategies. In real life, marketers may need to manage a range of products in their offering. Okay, therefore we need to discuss about the product mix pricing strategies. Okay, the first concept is about product line pricing, where in this instance the company needs to set prices across an entire product line. Okay, so if you think about a hotel, for instance, they may have standard room, deluxe room, suite room, president suite room. Okay, and they will charge different prices or for each for different room. Okay, the next one is optional product pricing, which is basically charging the prices for main product and also the accessories. Okay, so if you look at product categories such as printers, for instance, or mobile phone, they should the marketers need to make decision to in terms of the price for the handset, for instance, for mobile phone, and also the accessories such as the screen protector, the cover, the charger, and so on and so forth, the battery, and so on and so forth. Okay. Captive product pricing is also about setting the price for main product and accessories, but the main product is normally charged quite low because the company normally expects to make profit from selling the accessories. All right, so you may find that printers may be cheap, may be very cheap. Recently, with $50 or even less, you may get a printer, and then you also need to pay for the consumable products. In this instance, the cartridge or the toners, for instance, to so your printer can still operate. Okay. Now, if you adopt captive product pricing, make sure that your customers depend on you in terms of accessories. Okay, otherwise your business model will not work. Okay, because you expect the customers to buy the accessories from you. Okay. By product pricing is basically pricing low value by products to get rid of them. So in the supermarket, for instance, we may find on the shelves a price tag reduced to clear, for instance. Okay, so that's basically the by product pricing. Okay, so they may even sell it below cost. Okay, now in this instance they are allowed to do it because they are not going to sell it anymore. They are not going to sell this product anymore. So they could argue that, well, rather than losing money because I need to write off these products, that means money for me. I just want to get whatever I can. Okay. And the next one is product bundle pricing. So in this instance, the marketing organizations offer one price for multiple products sold together. Okay, so for instance, telecommunication provider may offer home phone and also internet service, right? They bundle into one price. Or in Austria, we have companies,
telecommunication providers offering customers for home phone, internet, and also cable TV with one price. Okay. Why do you think they do that? What are the goals that these guys want to achieve? What do you think, Hans?
I guess they can try and capture a bigger market. They've got more products to offer. They can reduce some of their internal costs and have, for example, one administrative fee for all of those services instead of individual fees.
Yep. Fair enough. So they try to do that. Yes, absolutely. So they try to uplift their volume, and they also try to create the illusion being cost effective for the customers. Well, you only need to pay for one price, and they try to convince the customers. If the customers buy the product separately, they may need to pay more. And at the same time, as you mentioned, since they uplift, they increase the volume, all right, or their share of wallet from the same customer, they can expect to preempt competitors trying to convince the customers to spend their money for the competitors' service or product. Okay, so yeah, they are basically the goals that the marketers expect with product bundle pricing strategy. Okay. Right, so this is basically, the next slides are basically the explanation of those things, and I'm not going to discuss those things. And the next thing I'd like to discuss is the price adjustment pricing strategies. As discussed before, price is the only marketing mix variables that is easy to adjust compared with the other marketing mix variables. Okay, and here we say a number of tools that we can use to adjust our prices. The first one is discount and allowance pricing, where here we reduce the price for the customers because they give us a better trading terms, such as larger volume, for instance, or early payment, for instance. Normally receive 30 days payment, for instance, but these customers say, no, I'm going to pay in 1 week, so how much would you give me? Okay. The next one is the segmented pricing, where we adjust the prices to for specific customers, products or locations. And here in Sydney, for instance, we have Sydney train, for instance, offering cheaper price for pensioners and also students, for instance. We could also see that sometimes they have social mission, a bit of social mission in there, but not necessarily segmented pricing strategy is performed to solve the social issue in here. Not necessarily. Sometimes it is conducted because they want to get larger volume to absorb the cost. All right. So how does it happen? Well, look. If we talk about, let's say, cinema business, for instance, well, they may offer students price, and in the case of cinema, they still have to pay rental, the rental fee for the landlord. For argument's sake, let's say they pay $10,000, right, a week or whatever. And if they sell tickets, let's say $24 for adults, and they can only take, let's say, they have capacity to seat 150 people, for instance, and if they can only take if they can only take 50 people, so you could imagine that it will be certain amount of money that they can expect from these transactions. All right. Now, how much is that? Let me just do a bit of calculation in here. So that will be $1,200. Okay, and if they introduce students' price, right, and therefore they can expect the other 50. Okay. And we get a bit more in here, so we get $750. Okay, so if you look at that, if they only sell ticket to adults, $24, right? They only get $1,200. Right? Remember, the cost will not change. The landlord will not say, "Yeah, I know that you only have 50 people, right? So I'm going to reduce the rental fee." It's not going to be that case, okay? And therefore, with that, they actually get the extra revenue to help them absorbing the costs, okay? All right, so that's basically the one. And oops, sorry. The next one is the psychological pricing, which is basically adjusted the prices for psychological effects, okay, such as being premium or being affordable. And promotional pricing, we reduce the price temporarily for a special price, for instance, for short-run sales increase, basically. Now, geographical pricing strategy is basically about adjusting the price to considering the geographic location, because geographic location means cost to ship the product for the customers, right? There are several options here that the marketers can do. They may adopt one single pricing policy where everybody will be charged the same price, or they use zoning pricing strategies, zone 1, zone 2, zone 3, or FOB pricing policy, where they will ship until the port, and after that the customers pay for everything. Dynamic pricing strategy basically requires the marketers to adjust the prices according to the characteristics and need of the customers. And last one is international pricing, which is basically adjusting to international market because of the locations difference. Okay. Right, so that's basically the pricing strategies. So there are a couple of things that I'm not going to discuss this, just briefly about legislation, price fixing. So we can't disclose our prices to the competitors, and predatory pricing that that we also discussed before. Now, just before we move on to the assessments, any questions, Hans? Hello, Hans, any questions from you? Hans?
Right, can you hear me now, Eddie?
Yeah, I can now. I can.
Yeah. Sorry, I've got little internet problems at the moment, but we'll keep going.
Oh, okay, okay. Any question from you?
No, no questions.
Right. If you don't have any questions, why don't we discuss the assessment?
Sure.
Okay. We need to leave the meeting room and come back to the meeting room again by clicking the same link. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's okay.
Right. Brilliant. Thanks a lot.